Hi, we're here for another episode of Legends of the Highway. Today we're out at famous Willow Springs Raceway, the fastest road in the West. And we've got a 1966 Genie Can-Am car that is taken to the track for the first time in a number of decades. And with me today is Bill Falmer of Follmer Motorsports. Now, of course, those of you that are enthusiasts will remember the Falmer name because Bill's uncle George was a Can-Am champion and many think he was the best driver to ever drive a Can-Am car. So I thought it appropriate that we'd have Bill out here today to take this early Can-Am car out for some laps.
Yeah, so what we're out here today to do is just shake down this car. It hasn't been run for, like Steve said, 10, 12 years. He's got it dialed in a little bit, so we're just going to make sure that we have everything working, figure out our punch list on what we need to do, because we are going to take this car to Monterey in August and race it at the historic races and the USRRC race. So we just want to make sure everything is working properly before we leave.
So you've had a chance to run this Genie, which like I said, it's the first time it's been on the course in decades. What did you think for these first shakedown laps?
Well, I actually am very impressed with this car. It did nothing wrong. It turned in, it did everything it was supposed to do. Granted, we are not out here trying to set a qualifier, but for a first shakedown, it turns in, it stops, it goes straight, it accelerates. The only issue we have is obviously we need to change the gears. We're way short on the gears, but that's not a big deal and it's not an issue. So once we get that done, we should be ready to go at Monterey.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again to Bill for being out here from Follmer Motorsports and test running this car. And like I said, look for us and Legends of the Highway out at the Monterey Historics this year, running this historic Can-Am car. This particular car, in 1966, it was purchased by the original owner. He ran it professionally for approximately a year, year and a half. And then the car was purchased by its second owner, and it did some local autocross, some hill climbs, and then it was, after only a couple years, it was basically stored for many, many, many years. Luckily that this gentleman took good care of it. He had this idea he was going to turn it into a kind of a street car, for an outrageous street car at that. So it didn't have any crashes. The original tub and chassis and bodywork are all here. They're all intact, essentially have very low miles. We're the third owners of this car, if you can believe that, from 1966. These are the original wheels for this Genie, and these are magnesium, very lightweight. And luckily they've been inside in a climate controlled situation, so they're preserved and in wonderful shape. They reproduce the Goodyear Blue Streak tires, very similar to the ones that would have been used in period. So this is a new set of Goodyears that we're using for this testing. Coming around to the back, you'll notice that it's got a Halibran quick change rear end, and it's been adapted, believe it or not, to a Muncie transmission. So what this allows you to do is very easily you can remove this cover plate and change your gear ratio without having to pull the transmission and deal with the complexity and time that would take. So this is a great addition to the car and allows quick changes of gears. It's got a couple early taillights. I think they might even be Corvair taillights. As I said, you're required to have brake lights to race, but you don't need turn signals or running lights. But this car has them because the owner before me had intentions to run this thing on the street. Crazy, right? If you look a little further underneath the car, you'll notice the Lotus Suspension design, which of course makes for an incredibly well-handling car. Even though this car was built in 1966, it still has quite a bit of grip and has no difficulty going around a racetrack, even today at quick speeds. Here's the engine, small block Chevrolet. It's got original Corvette valve covers, which is typical to find on the Corvette race motors and sports racers back in the 60s and 50s. These are original valve covers. If you notice down here, it still retains a Traco Engineering sticker. Of course, Traco, short for Travers and Kuhn, was a well-known West Coast engine builder that built some of the fastest race cars on the planet for many decades. These exhaust pipes on a dragster would be referred to as zoomies, but on a road race car, they're basically a swept-back, straight pipe, open exhaust. The carburation system on these, and this was at a transitional period. A lot of the cars were transitioning from carburetors to fuel injection, but this car was one of the last ones still to run carburetors. So we have 4 Weber carburetors with 6-inch velocity stacks, which just gives this incredible period vibe, and the motor looks beautiful. Coming up to the front, we see one of the original style bucket seats that would have been found in these early sports racers and Cobras and so forth. There's the shifter, which I believe this is a Corvair shift knob of all things. And this is, of course, a cable shifter because it's a mid-engine design. Original Talbot mirror, which was basically standard equipment on all the sports cars and sports racers, late 50s, early 60s, even into the 70s. You'll notice up here that the radiator is almost horizontal because this car needs a low profile. So in order to do that, the radiator is laid down flat, has a cooling fan and shroud mounted underneath, and this is actually a radiator out of a Corvette, out of a high-performance Corvette, so it's an off-the-shelf item adapted to this purpose-built sports racer. So in summary, we're glad you were able to take a quick walk around and tour of this 1966 Huffaker Genie Mark 10B. One of two built, perhaps the last one in existence, who knows. Thanks for watching this episode of Legends of the Highway, and we'll see you at the next one.